Hey guys, Dan here. Welcome to Dan Reviews It. We've got another week of TV reviews to talk about. We're actually only going to do 5 shows this week. Usually I do 6, and there were a couple out there that I had thought about, but I had a little extra time on my hands, so I decided to actually watch 2 episodes of most of these shows instead of just the pilot, because I was so invested in the first couple that I watched. I wanted to just kind of continue on that trend. So we're going to talk about those soon enough, but first let's get to the news of the week. We have just one renewal, but a handful of cancellations. So the renewal is something that has been on my radar as a possible show to watch, to review for the last month or more. I think it premiered maybe in late September. Young Wallander at Netflix. I guess the first season was a big enough hit that they're going to do a second season of it. I had sort of heard of it, and it was on my list of new shows that were coming out, and it seemed interesting, but I don't know, nobody was talking about it, and so it just sort of fell through the cracks for me, but I guess since it is getting a second season, before the end of the year I'll have to check out some Young Wallander, maybe give it a review for you guys. But in terms of the cancellations, several going on here. Number one, Castle Rock on Hulu. So this was pretty much in the cards already, but there was no formal announcement about it, and finally Hulu has said that they are done with the show, and Warner Brothers released a statement that they would not be shopping it around or bringing it to their HBO Max service, so it's just done. But from what I understand, it was pretty good. I know a few people that watched it and really enjoyed it, so maybe something to check out if you're a fan of the Stephen King type stuff. Interrogation on CBS All Access will not be getting a season 2. I thought that was a not very good show. I remember it, I want to say maybe back in the fall or maybe early this year I tackled it whenever it premiered on CBS All Access, but just not good. And look, there's a whole restructuring over there at CBS All Access, so I think they're keeping in mind very closely what shows they want to continue when it moves to the Paramount Plus platform. No Activity was one of them that we talked about last week that will be moving on, so that's good. And then a couple shows I actually kind of enjoyed. So Connecting will air the final 4 episodes online for NBC, and this was, as far as I knew, not meant as a mini-series only. I think this was meant as a TV show that could continue even post-pandemic. It was very much made for the pandemic, and had the whole vibe of the, not Zoom specifically, but a social video chat service such as that. And we got to know some of these characters in those first few episodes I saw. I really liked it. I think I gave it a B or a B plus even. But it looks like that will not be continuing with new episodes, but they will air the final 4 on Peacock and on NBC's streaming service or whatever, their own website, I guess. And then 2 over on Fox that were meant for the summer, but with COVID changing all the schedules around, Fox decided to hold them and air them in the fall. One I kind of enjoyed, sort of guilty pleasure type way, and the other one I thought was okay, that I just reviewed, I think maybe last week. So Filthy Rich and Next will not be continuing on for a season 2. Like Connecting, and like a lot of shows that are meant to be aired in the summer when it's sort of the dead zone, Fox will air all of the episodes, but just will not be producing a season 2 for either of those shows. Filthy Rich I thought was kind of fun. I was actually just thinking about it a week ago, that I kind of want to finish that season off from the first episode I saw, and it was Kim Cattrall and sort of a Dynasty type of thing, like a Dallas type of thing, where they're real rich, and it seemed like a lot of campy fun. I sort of enjoyed it. Next was okay. I can't even remember what I graded it, but it was definitely middling. I think it was about a C plus or something in that range. But that was John Slattery and the tech kind of stuff, and he's trying to save the world from this overactive AI, I guess. So anyway, those are all canceled. So nothing really that I was heartbroken about, although connecting I really did like. I wanted to kind of see those characters outside of the pandemic. I was enjoying getting to know them, so that one's kind of a bummer. All right, so a couple other things to talk about in the news before we move to our reviews. A couple of major sitcoms premiered within the last couple weeks, and either didn't have one of their stars or said goodbye to one of their stars. And we talked about the casting stuff over the summer about both of these shows. But Mom aired just the other day with no Christy. They did mention her a couple of times in the episode, but she is off to law school in Georgetown. And they had her over the telephone later on in the episode. But Ana Faris was not on it. It was, it wasn't like Three's Company where once Suzanne Summers left, they still put her on the phone a couple of times with Janet. No, this was just, she's there in name only. And they've left the door for Ana Faris to come back. And I assume, this is a long enough running show that as long as, relationships are still good, I can totally see her coming back to do the series finale, or maybe even if she wants to come back a couple seasons down the line, if she misses it or something, or misses the paycheck, I'm sure they would probably have her back. But that show has gone through so many changes. The beginning was all about basically her family and her mom, who's Alice and Janney, and then it is went into, over the last 4 or 5 years, into an ensemble show mostly about the gals in AA, and then the William Fichtner character as well. So we say goodbye to Ana Faris, and then Superstore returned with a 2-part opener, and they bid farewell to the Amy character. America Ferrera announced last season, really, she was supposed to say goodbye in the finale of last year, but of course with COVID shutting things down a couple weeks early, they didn't get to film that. So it's nice that they gave her, a proper send-off. And a lot of shows actually are doing that now. The episode that was sort of left when the pandemic hit, they're doing as the season premiere or what have you. I know American Housewife did that, and there's a couple other shows that sort of had half a show in the can and went to finish that up. And I don't know how much of the Superstore episode was filmed before the pandemic, but I know that America Ferrera was supposed to leave at the end of last season and didn't get to do that. So let's talk about the first pickup of the 21-22 TV season. So this would be for next fall. This is a year from now. But we already have one network pickup, and it's on Fox. It's called This Country. It is a remake of a BBC comedy. Paul Feig is going to direct. I don't know if he's directing all the episodes or just the pilot, but Fox has picked it up for a 14-episode run to air next fall. So even though our schedules for this year aren't even quite complete, some networks are sort of picking things up. And this is one that was going to be a pilot last spring, when pilot season got shut down. The only pilot that was finished, we've talked about this, was Be Positive, which aired Thursday night on the premiere episode. So I think next week we'll tackle that on this show. But interesting that they're already looking ahead to the 21-22 television season. So, of course, the election was this past week. We all know that. Biden, it was just announced this morning, is the official winner, which I'm very excited about. But this is very interesting because cable news obviously is huge when it comes to election season. CNN on Wednesday, so the day after the election, scored its second highest ratings of all time. Now, they've been a network for 40 years, and Wednesday night they had their second highest rating ever, and it led all of broadcast and cable shows in prime time with a 7.12 million viewers on CNN. Fox News then carried all of Tuesday night, that makes sense, with 13.7 million, and that was the most watched election night coverage in cable history. Was Tuesday night on Fox News. And overall on Tuesday night, 56.9 million viewers were tuned to 21 different networks to watch different news. Obviously all the major networks and then all the cable news networks and stuff like that. In 2016, by comparison, more viewers actually, 71 million watched election night on a total of 13 networks. And I can see why, because I, for one, was so sort of. First of all, I knew that they would not call the election Tuesday night, so I was really not trying to glue myself to the TV Tuesday night because I was like, well, what's the point? I cast my vote. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So I did end up turning it on for about an hour, but it was late. It was not prime time. It was about 11 p.m. That I finally turned it on. And sure enough, nothing was really set. Some of the states were called, many were not. So kind of interesting though. So I don't know if people had the same thought process that I did, that I'll watch later in the week when they are actually giving us real information and real numbers. I don't know, but overall they had more in 2016. But it is interesting to note that CNN's most watched broadcast of all time was the 2016 election night. So this year it was their second most watched ever, was the night after the election, and in 2016 it became their most watched ever, and that was the night of the election. So cable news, obviously very, very important when it comes to election season. So for this week in Reboots, we have 2 game shows. I'm so excited. No other reboot news, but I can talk about some game shows, one of my favorite things. And one of them I had already known about, but not exactly all the details on, so I'll talk about that in a second. But a GSN original classic game is coming back, Chain Reaction. It first aired, I think, in the 60s, and I'm not sure where, maybe NBC Daytime, but Dylan Lane brought it back on GSN. He was the host of that in the mid-2000s, I want to say around 2006, and it aired for about a year, but then it aired in perpetual reruns, and they aired maybe 200 episodes. I mean, it was stripped, so Monday through Friday there was a new episode of Chain Reaction for months. So they may have ended up with 200-some episodes that they just aired perpetually, and they still air a lot of the reruns, but they are bringing it back with Dylan Lane again. He's going to return, which I love. He's so young, too. I mean, he was young, 15 years ago. He's still very young in terms of, like, game show hosts. So, if he wants to host Chain Reaction for 40 more years, he probably could do just that. And then the other one is something that I first learned about on GSM, but it was originally a BBC show, and that's called The Chase. Now, I had heard that ABC was going to be picking this up for their summer fun and games block, so this should air next summer. Like they usually air the game shows. They're airing actually several this fall because of holes in their schedule. But usually they do the primetime game shows in the fall, and I love it so much. I try to save some actually to kind of watch them year round a little bit. But so what I had heard about this was that it was going to be James Holzhauer from Jeopardy. He was actually a contestant on The Chase on the GSN version, one of the several game shows he was on before Jeopardy, but he will be one of 3 people on this show. Basically what The Chase is you have a trivia expert answering, in some instances, the same questions as the contestants, in other instances, different questions, but in any event, they have to kind of build their bank up and try and get enough moves ahead of the beast, they call him, that they can successfully win at the big chase at the end of the show. And Brooke, it's either Brooke Burns or Brooke Burke hosted the show. They were I love them both, but they were out right at the same time, and I think it's Brooke Burns that hosted it. It's whichever one hosted Dog Eat Dog back in the day. So it's her. But so now what ABC is doing is actually taking not just James Holzhauer, but all 3 of the Jeopardy greatest of all time members. So you've got Brad Rutter, James Holzhauer, and of course the great Ken Jennings are all going to be take turns basically being the beast. There's going to be 9 episodes airing on ABC, so I assume it will be 3, 3, and 3, and they'll probably just rotate them. But I love this idea. ABC was very eager to work with the GOAT champions on Jeopardy because the primetime ratings for Jeopardy shortly before the pandemic hit were great for this greatest of all time contest. And obviously I think a lot of that was due to Alex Trebek, and his cancer, and we don't know how long that greatness will be with us. So why not do it now? And I think, a lot of people probably tuned in for that as well, but it was certainly compelling television. I don't watch Jeopardy every night. I haven't for a long time, but I definitely checked that out. So I'm excited that they'll be bringing them to the chase. All right, so with that, let's get to the review, shall we? We have 5, but I think some of them I may spend a little more time on than I usually do. And like I said, I did, watch 2 episodes of almost all these shows. Usually, if it's a half hour, I'll watch the first 2. If it's an hour-long show, I just will watch the one and kind of, get a feel for it. But I started with The Queen's Gambit, and after 1 episode, I just had to keep going. So, maybe you guys could feel me on this because it's been #1 on Netflix since it premiered a couple of weeks ago, and still is, I think, tonight. So, this is where we're going to start tonight on the reviews. This is on Netflix, like I said. There's only 7 episodes, so you could really binge this in one afternoon or one evening. It is a fictional story, and it centers around a chess prodigy named Beth Harmon, and she's played by Anya Taylor-Joy in most of it. But in the first episode, we only see her for a few seconds. It's mostly Isla Johnston, or Isla Johnson, that is portraying the younger Beth, I think they might say how old she is, but maybe she's like 9 or 10. She's young, and essentially it takes us through her years as a kid in the foster system into becoming this chess prodigy, world champion chess player, and being adopted by Marielle Heller's character, Alma Wheatley, who is, sort of going through some hard times with her husband. And she adopts Beth when she's a young teenager, I think maybe 13 or 14 years old. And that's the basic premise. But the reason for this one, I decided to go ahead and watch the second episode, not only because the first episode was insanely compelling, but Anya Taylor-Joy isn't really in it. Because it is the younger version of the Beth character. So I decided, let's at least see what Anya Taylor-Joy has to offer in this role, because she is in episodes 2 through 7. So I gave it the old 2-episode try, and my God, was I not disappointed. I'll just come out, and say this at the start here of my review, that this is probably the best thing Netflix has put out this year. I mean, it is, obviously I'll watch the whole thing before I give it a final grade. I may actually do a standalone video about this. I know my buddy Tim, that I do the Dan Does Disney videos with, and some other things on the channel. I know he's been watching it, so I may ask him if he wants to do a standalone video for this, because I think it's one of those shows that really kind of everybody's talking about, and it's just so well done that you could really sink your teeth into a 20 or 25 minute review. I try to keep my reviews on this show to like 8 minutes or less. So I don't think I'll get to talk about quite everything that I love about this show. But just the same, I would also like to give it the full 7-episode review. A big binge, if you will. But for now, like most shows on the TV News and Reviews here, we'll just rate it on these first couple episodes. But my God, it blew me away. First of all, Anya Taylor-Joy, we've seen several times lately. I mean, just this year alone, I just saw her in The New Mutants, which was terrible. But she was also in Emma earlier this year, which was pretty good. And I really first took notice of her when she was in... Well, I'm not sure which one came first, because she was in Split, and she was really good in that. But then there was also another movie around that same time called Morgan, and the movie itself was pretty bad, but she was definitely good in it. Like, you took notice, even though the movie was pretty bad. I at least took notice of, okay, who's this girl? Like, she's got this really unique look about her, because she's got these very big, beautiful eyes, and there's just something about her that is compelling. And she didn't really help elevate The New Mutants, unfortunately, and that was just sort of not able to be salvaged. But then again, they filmed New Mutants literally like 4 or 5 years ago, so this was when she was just starting out. But Queen's Gambit, obviously, she's got a little more acting chops, and she is just brilliant in this show. But not to slight the younger version of the character, the Isla Johnston, who I don't know, she is a new actress. She was just as great as the character in the first episode. Very, commanding of a scene, going toe-to-toe with some of these adult actors, and most of them I did not recognize, so I'm not saying she's going toe-to-toe with A-listers here, but, everybody's good in this. She has a best friend played by, let's see here. I'm not sure who plays her, to be honest, but she has a best friend at the home that is also a really talented actress, whoever she is. The custodian that teaches her how to play chess, he's really good too. He's played by Bill Camp. Everybody is just connecting here, but more than that, the direction of this is really well done. And I don't know if the same person, let me see if the same person directed all 7 episodes, because sometimes that will happen. It looks like, yes indeed, not just that, written and directed by Scott Frank. And I don't know what else he's done. Okay, well, here you go. He wrote the screenplay, or at least co-wrote it, for Logan in 2017 and got an Academy Award nomination for that. Well, there you go. I mean, first of all, he has a way with these younger female actresses then, because if you'll remember Logan, I mean, one of the standouts for sure was that young gal that played Logan's buddy. But boy, oh boy, this show, it captures the essence of the time perfectly too. It takes place back in the 50s, and I guess a little bit in the 60s. I have not gotten to that part yet, but it takes place sort of like in the mid 50s where I was watching, and just the attention to detail that Mr. Frank has here is astounding. I mean, the shops, the homes, the dresses, the hair, everything. And look, 50s is a pretty easy style, I guess, to sort of come out with it and do a show based in. We see a lot of 50s movies and TV shows, certainly, but just even like so far as the lighting of this show, it really invites you into this Beth girl's world and how brilliant she is, but also she's clearly got a struggle with addiction even as a young gal. She's stealing pills from the medicine room or whatever at the orphanage. And look, maybe some of the orphanage stuff is a little bit cliche. I guess you could say that about it, but this character is so compelling. And I don't watch chess. I don't know about chess. I know some of the rules, I guess, and I know the pieces. But I've seen a few movies about chess and maybe TV shows too. I don't know, but certainly some movies. And I'm never necessarily like lost, because I think they assume that a lot of the people watching don't know chess. So these specific moves and stuff like that. That's where the Queen's Gambit name of the show comes from, is one of the moves. But just to see her move up in the competition and be so sure of herself while still learning how to be a woman. She has her first period at a competition, and so she has to deal with that. Like I said, maybe I'll do a longer form review with Tim if he's interested in that, because I really, really loved this. It's easily, I think, the best thing on Netflix this year so far. I don't do A pluses on TV shows, just because I feel like if you give a whole season an A plus, that means every episode is just about an A plus, and that's kind of unrealistic. So the highest grade I generally give for a show is an A, and that is certainly what I give Queen's Gambit. This was just an incredible piece of fiction, and I can't wait for the end of it. So we're going to come back to Netflix. First, let's go over, though, to HBO for a miniseries there called The Undoing, which is based on a novel called You Should Have Known. in 2014, and this is a David E. Kelly production. He has adapted the screenplays. He's written these episodes, and he is not the director. It's Suzanne Bier. I want to say it's Bier, and she did Bird Box, and she also did The Night Manager over on I think that was on HBO as well. Oh no, that was on AMC, but still, so she's sort of firmly in this mini-series mode here, and a lot of big names in this. It's called The Undoing, and it's Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant, Noah Jupe, who you may not know the name, but he's been in a bunch of things for his young age. He was in Ford versus Ferrari. He was the best friend in Wonder. He was, I think, the kid in The Quiet Place, too. So yeah, he definitely gets around. Good little kid actor. Edgar Ramirez is in this. So Donald Sutherland as well plays the father of the Nicole Kidman character. And essentially, this is about a New York City sort of high society group of women, and Nicole Kidman is one of them, and along with her son, and he goes to this really nice, prestigious school that you have to pay to get into. It's a private school, and by the end of the first episode, we have a murder. It's the mother of one of the classmates of Henry Fraser, who is the Noah Jupe character. And this woman who got murdered, she is a little bit of an oddball. We sort of see her trying to mingle with the other society women at a meeting, and sort of it's obvious she's a bit out of place there. But Nicole Kidman's character, Grace, plays a therapist, psychologist, what have you. So, she basically offers her some free counseling if anything, she wants to talk about. And she's saying, oh, yeah, my husband, do you ever feel trapped and this and that? And then she ends up dead. So what is necessarily happening? So I watched 2 episodes of this because, like I said, since I watched 2 of Queen's Gambit, I figure I'll watch 2 of most of these. This is on HBO, though, so they air 1 a week. It's not like Netflix. All the episodes are not available. In fact, they've only so far had the 2, but the 3rd will be on tonight. But basically, I don't want to give too much away, but let's say by the end of the first episode at least, the husband, the Hugh Grant character, is not quite to be found. He's away on a business trip, but Grace, the Nicole Kidman character, is having a real hard time getting him on the phone, finding out what hotel he's even staying at on this business trip in Cleveland. And she starts to freak out a little bit. And as we get into the second episode, more of the story unfolds, and we learn some details about some of the characters, and a little bit more about the murdered woman as well. So this is basically a pretty standard theme, I feel like, for this type of miniseries. It's not a true crime, but it's based on a lot of what the true crime shows thrive on. Is the murdered wife, did the husband do it, did the best friend do it, did X, Y, and Z happen. It's sort of following that template. But look, the actors here are great. They're in fine form, all of them, really. I mean, the main actors are great. We haven't seen a lot of Hugh Grant, but he's third build, so he must be in the show as we progress a little bit more. I believe there's going to be 6 episodes of this total. HBO usually does 6 or 8. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be 6. So it will end the week after Thanksgiving. So all through this month you can watch them Sundays on HBO. The HBO Sunday night shows always seem to have something going on. But Nicole Kidman's great here. Noah Jupe, the kid, he continues to impress me as a really good child actor, solid. And I hope that the Hollywood life doesn't chew him up and spit him out like it does a lot of young actors. But if it does, maybe he can bounce back like Shia LaBeouf and some of these other ones, because I really think he's got a lot of talent. Anytime I see him pop up, I'm like, okay, this performance is going to be good, and he never disappoints. And he's trying to kind of talk his mom down here off the ledge of going nuts about where's my husband and all this, and he's like, oh, you know him, he's bad at communicating, maybe he just forgot to tell you what hotel he was at, whatever. But, he has these little nuances in the child character that I really like. Overall, though, this is a fairly basic type of story, and we see this a lot lately on HBO and otherwise. Big Little Lies, Little Fires Everywhere. It's a tried and true sort of formula, and the twists and turns of this may make it worth the ride by the end. Little Fires Everywhere certainly did. I really enjoyed that. But again, that was a lot to do with these performances of the characters. Reese Witherspoon was great in that. Scandal was great in that. What's her name? Oh God, she's so beautiful too. I can picture her face. But anyway, everybody was excellent in that. Kerry Washington, right? Of course. And here again, we see great characters, but nothing necessarily, super new. Even the setting. I mean, New York City is such a classic setting for this type of show, but certainly compelling enough so far. I really like the twists going on in the 2 episodes I saw, so it is it is enough for me to give it a good recommendation at least. So I'll leave The Undoing for now with a B. This is another one though, like Queen's Gambit, I'm certainly going to finish. I mean, I really was interested in this. All right, so up next we're going to go back to Netflix, talk about Grand Army. This is a show that's 9 episodes long. It is not listed as a miniseries, so it could certainly get a season 2 on Netflix. And it's created by Katie Capiello, I want to say, and it's very loosely based on a play she did called Slut the Play. And so in this, look, there's no name actors here. These are all, both child and adult actors are people we've generally not seen before, but it follows the lives of several students at Grand Army High School, which is a lower-income public school in Brooklyn, New York. Mostly black kids, but as we see, there's actually quite the melting pot here. From who we're following. We have Sid, who is on the swim team. He's an Indian American, but he has a secret that he is, in the closet, and he's also got, a sister that's in the school. And then he becomes friends, with this Chinese American girl, but she was adopted, and so, the other kids in the school don't, really view her as really Chinese or Asian, and they'll talk Chinese in front of her because she doesn't know the language, and it's a lot of your typical sort of lower income high school sort of bullying, and there's a list about who has the best sex and this and that, typical stuff really. But what elevates this higher than most is the truth, and this is something that Joe and I talk about weekly on our Freaks and Geeks reviews. I think the gold standard for that is My So-Called Life. But we've seen it, in many shows since, including Freaks and Geeks. And honestly, Daria is one of them as well. At some point, I want to do some Daria reviews on my channel because I love that show, and I think people don't quite understand how much it gets high school right, which is crazy for a silly animated show on MTV, but it did back in the 90s. So Grand Army, kind of continues in that tradition. I mean, obviously, because it's on Netflix, it is a lot more true to life with the language. Certainly the sexual frank language and just cursing in general. Like in the very first scene, we see a girl trying to fish a condom out of another girl's body that fell in when she was having sex. So, right away we're like, okay, got it. We're diving right in with these characters. And after the first episode, I sort of thought, all right, well, this might be better as like a movie, but I'm not sure how much we want to spend time with these characters as we continue to progress. But here's another one where I decided to watch 2 episodes, make it kind of fair to some of these other shows, and I'm glad I did, because the second episode is where we really start getting some great character development for a lot of these kids, and we see a little more about their home lives in some cases, and we see a little bit more about their school lives as well. The biggest downfall for me is one of these characters that is a constant instigator to the teachers. You know, she dresses a bit inappropriately and gets admonished. In the first episode, there's a bomb that goes off, not in the school, but like in the neighborhood. So they're all kind of under lockdown, and you know, this one teacher's kind of harping on this girl for her dress code, and the girl's just like, dude, you know, do we really have nothing more important going on right now? Like, there's a bomb that just went off, and so the next day, you know, she comes in with this free the nipple see-through shirt. You know, it's white, but, you know, she gets it wet in class, and you know, she's just an instigator, and I really don't like her character, because I feel bad for the teacher, and I feel like, you know, in shows like this, I think we're supposed to really sympathize more with the kids than the teachers. Not that it's like one or the other necessarily. Like, obviously, these shows also thrive on having good teachers and principals and advisors in some cases. You know, obviously there's going to be some bad and some good. But this one is definitely getting by with the characters, and like I said, much better as we go on in the season. You know, I really, if I was grading it on just episode 1, it would probably be more in the C+ range or something, but as we're progressing with these characters in episode 2, you know, I'm definitely grading it higher than that. So I should probably move on here to keep the video short, but I'm going to leave Grand Army with a B. The realism here is, I think, very key, and the more we learn about these characters, as long as they keep being real, you know, I think the better it will be. So let's go to Hulu now for an interesting one, because it's Marvel adjacent, I guess you could say. It's called Helstrom, and it's a standalone story, but apparently it is canon with the MCU, and it's produced by Marvel Television and ABC Signature, which produces a lot of the Marvel content we've seen not in theaters. And basically, this was supposed to be one of the linchpins in this Marvel's Adventure into Fear franchise, which was going to include a Ghost Rider reboot, and it was going to be in, I guess, on Hulu mostly, but this was before, you know, sort of a lot of the changes went down between, you know, Fox and, or not Fox, but Marvel Studios and Disney Plus. You know, Netflix used to carry a lot of the Marvel shows, and then they all got canceled, and then some of them went to Hulu, and, you know, now Disney Plus is going to be doing all of them, and da-da-da. So this is sort of like a leftover that I guess they filmed already, so they're like, well, we may as well release it. And it's definitely too dark to be a Disney Plus show. Now, I don't know how dark the Marvel Disney Plus shows are going to be, but this is meant to be like a horror, supernatural type of show, so I think it probably does not make sense to put it on Disney Plus, and there's nowhere really else to put it, so let's leave it on Hulu, I guess. But it takes the characters Damien and Ana Helstrom, who I don't know. I know the major people on Marvel Comics, but I don't know these people. But they're apparently the children of a Satanist serial killer, and they are trying to hunt killers now. They're now going to, you know, do their own killing and hunting, and they're going to hunt the worst of humanity. And so Tom Austin plays Damien, Sidney Lemon plays Anna. We have Elizabeth Marvel, interesting, no relation, of course, to the comic books, but as Victoria Helstrom. She is the mother, and she's been in an institution for 2 decades. And this show, I should say, it's not a movie, really wants to be edgy, and it wants to be scary. But the problem, well, there's several problems. One problem is it moves way too slowly. Another problem is I didn't care about any of these characters. And a third problem is the acting is subpar. What this actually reminded me a lot of, on a much worse scale, is the CBS show Evil. Because it now that doesn't have superhero elements to it, but there's certainly a lot of supernatural and thriller-esque elements to it. supernatural horror, and that's a CBS show, so obviously there's not going to be language in it really, but there's going to be you can show a lot of violent stuff and spooky stuff on some of these shows nowadays in primetime, and Evil is a much better version of this. And I don't think, look, Evil just went through the close of its first season, so I don't think this show is necessarily biting off of Evil. I'm just saying that they're very similar in tone and in themes, and Evil does better on just about every single scale, This just was a waste of time. This one, I'll be honest, I only did watch the first episode like I usually do for these, but I figured I was watching most of the second episodes, but after the first episode of this, I was like, I'm not wasting 45 more minutes of my time to watch the second episode of this. I'm a little bit trepidatious about what these Disney Plus Marvel shows are going to be, because for one, I am kind of now burned out on the Marvel stuff. I think Endgame was a perfect capper to that world and the cinematic universe, and I'm not saying never revisit it, but a few years of reprieve might be nice, and sort of because of COVID, I guess we're getting a little bit of a longer reprieve than we would have, but, obviously they're going to be doing, Spider-Man 3 and Black Panther 2 and all of the Disney Plus shows. Helstrom is something that will easily be forgotten, in the same bin as a lot of the worst of the Marvel Netflix shows. I know there were some great ones. I've heard Daredevil is very, very good. I've heard about some others. And then there's Helstrom. Nothing worked about it. I wasn't scared. It was, some cheap thrills, if anything. Some jump scares, but, it moved way too slowly, and the acting just was not doing it for me. So, I leave Helstrom with a D. It's just, I can't recommend really hardly anything about it. So finally, we're going to close with back on HBO, How To with John Wilson. This is a comedy series, I guess you could say, comedy documentary series, I guess. And there's going to be, I think, 6 episodes of this in total. And they've aired 3 so far. This airs on Friday nights. And it's, just a half-hour show. And this is from the same people that brought us Nathan For You. Nathan Fielder is actually the executive producer of this. And this is a very interesting type show. It's sort of not that different, really, from Nathan For You on Comedy Central. The docu-reality type of thing. That's, a comedy where he's, going out and about and whatever. And it's got the same sort of style as Nathan For You. Nathan For You, I think, is a little more slickly put together, if I remember. I only watched like 1 or 2 episodes. Or maybe I didn't even see full episodes, and maybe it's just clips I've seen. But so I watched the first episode of this. It's called How to Make Small Talk. Each episode has a different theme, and really from that theme, it branches off into many different directions. So the How to Make Small Talk episode ended up with John Wilson going to the MTV Spring Break and kind of weaseling his way in there and talking to people down there. And he's like, well, we can't make small talk, about what's on their T-shirts because nobody's wearing a T-shirt. Sort of little pithy, revelations like that. I tend to not love this style of delivery. I think it works in some people, and I think it works best in smaller doses, more like sketches than half-hour shows. For example, some of Kyle Mooney's stuff on SNL. This guy, though, like, for one thing, his voiceovers are just stream of consciousness, but it seems like he wrote them down. Like, the things that he's saying seem like they're written down and rehearsed, but he stumbles over words and he says constantly, and he sort of, minces words or stutters or whatever, and it's like, okay, I do that. I say all the time on this channel. I try not to, but it's one of my crutches. I know that. I hate it. But, he is obviously in his... I just do this live and put it up. I don't really edit it. He's obviously editing this together because there's a lot of video footage to get to and stuff. So, obviously, it's a purposeful trademark, I guess you could say, of his speech pattern, and it's something that, to me, it just sort of, I don't. It doesn't make him sound stupid. It makes him sound like he just either doesn't care enough to sort of edit it up and take that out, or that, and this is more the case, I'm sure, that this is the character. And it's one that I really get tired of pretty quickly if it's in that half-hour format. What I liked about this, though, is a lot of the people that he interviewed. We see a lot of, like, real-deal people, especially when he gets down to Florida and he does the spring break thing, and I think it's Palm Beach, where he's, starts talking to people, and, we learn about their lives, and, why'd you come to MTV Spring Break in the first place? And, he gets to know some of these people. And, the first half is not at MTV Spring Break. The first half is, like, in New York, just walking around and stuff. And it's all sort of oddly engaging. I can't say that I was not interested in the things that he was saying or that people were talking about. I'm not sure how many laughs I got out of it. Like when I think of some of the top, like, man on the street sort of bits, like, I love the Kimmel stuff whenever he goes in like when they make up fake bands for Coachella and they go ask people, oh, are you excited to see, whoever. That's funny. I don't like Jay Leno, really. He's okay as a guy, I guess, but I didn't like his Tonight Show, but the jaywalking bits are very classic. And then you've got, I think, probably the new gold standard of the last 10, 15 years is the Billy Eichner stuff. Billy on the Street is great. This is not any of that. This is much less compelling or funny even than that. But he does get some good conversations going with these people. And so that's the part where I'm like, I don't know how much of these I want to watch, because his style is really, to me, irritating. It's not my kind of style, but I do like the conversations he's coming up with, and I don't mind some of the things he's writing. Some of the jokes that he writes in there are pretty clever, and the editing is very cleverly done, so I like that about it, but I'm not sure for the half-hour format that it worked for me personally, but I am going to leave it with a slightly positive grade, because there was enough I liked about it, but his delivery, and especially just the editing of everything, with his constant, ums, and the stuttering of the words, and the saying wrong words. It's like, it kind of made me angry, because I'm like, look, I do this kind of stuff on my show, but I just go directly from the film to the YouTube. I don't edit it at all, and it probably shows. So I don't know. So that wasn't working for me. But I'm going to leave How To with John Wilson with a C+. I think it could even be maybe a B-. But if you like this kind of stuff, and if you like Nathan For You, I think you'll definitely appreciate it more than I did. I think Nathan For You is also, pretty average. It's okay. I don't hate it, but it's not something I would generally just turn on by myself to watch it. So that's kind of how I feel about this. So, all right. That's going to do it for the show. I try to get these between 45 and 50 minutes. We've been going overtime lately, which is another reason I decided to just do 5 shows this week. But next week, I know I'm going to do that the new Chuck Lorre show, Be Positive, and ABC has a couple of shows as well. I think 2 of them didn't premiere, though, because of all the election results. So I'll have to look at what actually premiered this last week and what didn't. But I'll be back within 5, 6, 7 days with another TV news and reviews for you. And in the meantime, we've got The Masked Singer, all new this week. I do have a Dan Does Disney with Joe for Lady and the Tramp that we'll be putting up soon. And a lot of other fun stuff. Please subscribe below if you haven't. Comment, of course. Love hearing from you guys and talking with you. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Bye.